Changes are coming to Indian country in leadership, tourism, and gaming. We'll find out what's going on. And Pulitzer Prize winning author Louise Erdrich talks about writing. I'm Patty Thalonghva. Join us for those interviews plus headlines from Indian country today.
Arizona is home to 22 tribal nations and more than 340,000 Native Americans. Arizona State University builds on more than 6 decades of working and partnering with tribal nations and communities. Many of our Native faculty incorporate Indigenous knowledge systems in seeking solutions through a process of community engagement that respects and honors traditional ways of thinking. Together, we are creating community solutions leading to a more equitable future.
This is Indian Country Today.
Esquili, yes, thank you for joining us. I'm Patty Thalonghva. COP26 is set to begin Monday. It's the annual conference on climate change hosted by the United Nations. This year's theme aims to unite the world, but Indigenous people are saying just getting to the conference in Glasgow, Scotland is a challenge. In some regions of the world, access to vaccines has been difficult. Indigenous leaders coming from red-list countries must undergo testing and quarantine in a hotel. The gathering is set to take place from November 1st to the 12th. It's a space for the world's leaders to grapple with escalating problems such as floods, fires, heat, drought, and other disasters. Globally, Indigenous people make up only 5% of the population, yet manage 80% of the world's biodiversity, such as forests and tundra. A new regulation meant to give voters in New Mexico easier and safer access to the ballot box apparently isn't working. Over the summer, the state passed a rule requiring each county to provide at least 2 ballot drop boxes. There are 33 counties in the state. With the state's local elections set to begin next month, data from the Secretary of State shows nearly half of the counties won't meet the state's requirements. San Juan County is home to a large portion of the Navajo Nation. It should have 3 drop boxes, but has 0, according to reporting by Source NM. Native organizers say drop boxes are a way for voters living in rural areas to vote with ease and safety in this pandemic. Many of the state's 23 tribal nations are located in rural areas. The state is saying complying with the new rule is set to formally begin next June, but officials are currently working to provide more drop boxes. 7 months ago, Major League Baseball moved the All-Star Game out of Atlanta in response to institutional racism. Today, it's holding the World Series there, and this time, the league is the institution supporting racism. On Tuesday, Baseball Commissioner Rob Manfred defended Atlanta's team name and its use of the tomahawk chop. During games, fans raise and lower their right arms in unison, howling a mock war chant. The National Congress of American Indians President Von Sharp released a statement on Wednesday criticizing Manfred's comments, saying in part, "In our discussions with the Atlanta Braves, we have repeatedly and unequivocally made our position clear. Native people are not mascots, and degrading rituals like the tomahawk chop that dehumanize and harm us have no place in American society." NCAI is also asking the team to follow the example led by the Cleveland Guardians in renaming the baseball team. Well, it's been more than 50 years since the University of Maryland has had a new dining hall, and now they are naming it after the Piscataway Conoy tribe. They're using the nation's language to honor the deep history and kick off Native American Heritage Month. The name was selected with the help of tribal elders, students, and faculty. It's a 60,000 square foot space, and the new name will be revealed Monday with the ground blessing. And if you enjoy watching Molly of Denali, here's another very cool reason to watch the new season. The children's program has a very special guest voicing the role of Tlingit activist Elizabeth Peradovich. The iconic Alaska Native woman, known for her passion and words, is being voiced by Tlingit and Haida woman Liz Medicine Crow. Vera Starbard, who is Tlingit, writes for the show. She says it was an honor to help write this episode that deals with racism. Medicine Crow says being a part of the show with so much Native representation is mind-blowing.
So I had no idea about what it would feel like or what it would be like. And the power of just saying these words, knowing that our children would be able to hear them and relate to them was and still is really just mind-blowing to me that we have a vehicle like this.
Molly of Denali's new season premieres on November 1st. And those are the headlines for Indian Country Today. I'm Patty Thalahungva. Coming up, Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan reflects on her service and a support system for Indigenous nurses in Oklahoma. Stay with us. Peggy Flanagan is the second Native woman to serve in a statewide executive office after Denise Juneau. In 2018, Flanagan was elected as Minnesota's lieutenant governor. After the murder of George Floyd at the hands of police last year, Minnesota was at the center of racial reckoning. Earlier this week, Mark Trehunt asked her about her re-election bid with Governor Tim Walz.
We have more work to do. We were able to step up during the pandemic and make sure that we kept food on the table for Minnesota families, had one of the strongest eviction moratoriums in the country and kept people housed and kept children and families healthy and safe. And so, that has been our response to the pandemic. And we have a lot more work that we want to do to make sure that folks have access to high quality healthcare and education, and continue the work of making sure that our young people are seen and heard and valued, and made sure that Minnesota is the best place in the country to raise a child. So we got more work to do, and I'm eager to get it done. For your viewers who are familiar with our state, there's something that you hear called Minnesota nice. And oftentimes what that means is that we are passive aggressive when we talk about tough stuff. And racism and discrimination against Black, Indigenous communities of color is something that has been happening in our state since our state was founded. And so being able to tell the truth, and I call those like who wants pie moments, where we're having a difficult conversation and an important conversation, and suddenly someone will switch the topic to food and say, who wants pie, when things get uncomfortable. We can't do that anymore, because this is why we are in the position that we're in, is that we've been brushing a lot of stuff under the rug and being unwilling to talk about it and to tell the truth. And so because of that, that's one of the reasons why, in this state, it's one of the best places to live and one of the best places to grow up if you're white. If you are Black or Indigenous or come from an immigrant community or community of color, we have some of the largest disparities in the country. And so being able to tell the truth about why those disparities exist, so then we can have policies that help come correct many of the circumstances that we find, that's what's needed and necessary. And I think Minnesotans are ready for it.
The Enbridge Line 3 was just completed, in spite of opposition from many Native nations.
This has been one of the most difficult years of my life, and certainly because of the pandemic, but also because of Line 3. I have been very clear that it is not something that I supported, and have reiterated that over and over again. I've been focused on the things that I can do, which we just talked a bit about, Mark. And I truly believe, as I said previously, that, having more Native people at the table is a good thing. And we will be able to continue to see positive impacts on our communities through that participation. This has been hard. And I'm going to focus on the places where I do have the ability to shift and change conversations and to get results for our people.
And that was Minnesota's Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan. A new organization is supporting nurses. The Oklahoma Indigenous Nurses Association is creating a community focused on improving Indigenous health care. Sonia Frazier is its first president. Mark Trahant asked her what challenges the field faces.
Some of the challenges are just the lack of data on Native nurses. We're trying to encourage our young people to go into health professions because we're realizing that representation matters. And so that's our main goal, is to start inspiring our young people to go into the health profession, and also to start gathering data and research on Indigenous health care is our goal.
How are your member nurses handling the pandemic?
With our historical trauma, it is what it's doing is re-triggering our historical trauma. And so that's one of the issues that we're seeing with our Indigenous populations. It's kind of bringing back all of those things that happened in the past. And so that's what we're trying to go through, is to find ways to help each other heal. That's always our main goal as well, is to help each other heal.
What rewards does a nursing career bring?
A lot of the rewards that you get from nursing is that Indigenous nurses are the natural healers of this land. And so that is the biggest reward that I always get from nursing, to have that strong healing spirit and to be connected to our people and to our land. And so that's kind of the biggest reward for us.
And that was Sonia Frazier, president of the Oklahoma Indigenous Nurses Association. When we come back, changes at the Phoenix Indian Center and a gaming update. The Phoenix Indian Center was founded in 1947, and through the years it has grown and is now the largest and oldest in the country. Its annual budget is $4.5 million, and for the past 17 years, Patricia Hibbler has led the center. And now she's moving on. Patty Hibbler talked with Mark Trahant about her tenure.
I am just really most proud of what we've been able to produce, how we've been able to grow, and really bring in new services that are a need to the community members. We're here to service the community, the urban living community, and we've grown outside of Maricopa County. We now have offices that are in Coconino County and Flagstaff, and we're serving the balance of state now of American Indians living off reservation within Arizona. I think that growth I'm very proud of the team that we built that really keeps community mindedness first. And that's what we're here for. That's what we were founded on. And I hope that's what will exist on far into the future.
Native people have historically left their homelands for urban centers for employment. The Phoenix Indian Center plays an important role in connections.
We create a home away from home for American Indian people that are here living this urban experience. What makes us Native is that our roots all come from the tribal bases that we're from. And we're just living this urban experience while we're here. As we go out and do networking and we're talking with people from tribes or people from the community, we always run into families who have been connected with us over the years. Many times as tribal leaders will say, when I lived in the city, I came to the Phoenix Indian Center, or my aunt or uncle or someone did. And then we're also connecting with families that moved here during Indian relocation and stayed here and never left. So they've raised their families here. So we continue to be that hub to build community for American Indians, and especially for young people that are in schools. So when we think about the young people here in these urban schools, and my son was certainly one of them, in the classroom or on the playground or wherever they're at, they may sometimes be the only Native child out there, and they're not connecting with others. So with our programs and services, we create that connection. We create that ability to learn more about their culture and traditions, and sometimes language if we have their language classes, and keep them connected to where they come from, where their grounding is, and where we all come from as Native people.
Patty Hibbler's organization helped bring Indigenous Peoples Day to the state.
We are proud of Indigenous Peoples Day and the state of Arizona recognizing that, and also the city of Phoenix and others. We work really closely with our youth, our high school aged youth. We do have a youth council called the Future Inspired Native American Leaders, which has up to 20 individuals on it every year. They really rallied around the passing of Indigenous Peoples Day, and many of them went and testified to the city of Phoenix and also had conversations with the governor and some of our state legislators. So we're really proud of that leadership that they bring and representing urban living American Indians to bring those issues forward, whether it be Indigenous Peoples Day or missing and murdered Indigenous people, those movements. We need to stay connected and help move them forward here in the urban areas at the same time.
That was Patricia Hibbler, the outgoing director of the Phoenix Indian Center. Well, sports betting is changing things in the world of gaming and Native-owned casinos. ICT's Karina Dominguez has this report.
With sports betting underway across most of the U.S., tribal gaming compacts with states were amended, and some are maintaining more exclusivity than others. Tribal gaming consultant Victor Rocha said sports betting is an existential fight for tribal gaming, particularly online gambling. He says the giant has woken up. Tribes had 20 years in the gaming industry, and now professional sports are eager to get into sports betting. Connecticut rolled out sports betting regulations, allowing state and tribal governments to offer in-person and online wagers, while Arizona is opening the floodgates to corporations eager to get in on the action. Arizona Governor Doug Ducey passed an emergency measure which allowed sports betting in the state to start on the same day the NFL season kicked off. He ensured there were enough licenses for all of the state's professional sports teams, but not for all 22 federally recognized tribes.
Well, I think with something like this, you always want to see responsibility. This will bring additional revenue, which is needed across our state and in our tribal communities. And you also need balance and responsibility with anything like this.
Although online sports bets exceeded expectations on its opening day, Rocha said not one of those bets were placed on tribal lands. What's more, the Arizona Diamondbacks avoided the same conflict of interest accusations the Mohegan tribe received, despite similar circumstances. The Mohegan Sun FanDuel Sportsbook is located on the same property as the casino and the arena for the WNBA team the tribe owns, the Connecticut Sun. Many are concerned there aren't transparent firewalls in place to ensure the team management and those setting the lines aren't influencing each other. The tribe suspended WNBA wagers until next season. In states that have yet to legalize sports betting, tribes are working to maintain exclusivity, but many have legal hurdles to overcome, with some even taking it to the ballot. I'm Karina Dominguez, reporting for ICT.
Words mean everything, and chosen carefully, they can mean anything but the truth. In the 1950s, a night watchman from a tribe in North Dakota found out that emancipation really meant the termination of his tribe as a legal sovereign government. Louise Erdrich won the Pulitzer Prize for these words that recorded her grandfather's deeds in her book, The Night Watchman.
I'll just read the beginning and the first page, because this is really where every day he'd go to the jewel bearing plant right outside of the Turtle Mountain Reservation in Rolla, and he would work every night as a night watchman. At the same time, he was fighting tooth and nail. He was fighting termination for the Turtle Mountain Chippewa. And in this book, I call him Thomas Boisjosh because I have to imagine a lot about him, but not this. This is pretty much how things went. Thomas Boisjosh removed his thermos from his armpit and set it on the steel desk alongside his scuffed briefcase. His canvas work jacket went on the chair, his lunchbox on the cold windowsill. When he took off his padded tractor hat, a crabapple fell from the ear flap, a gift from his daughter. He put it on the desktop to admire, then punched his time card, midnight. He walked the perimeter of the main floor. In this quiet, always quiet expanse, Turtle Mountain women spent their days leaning into the hard light of their task lamps. The women pasted micro-thin slices of ruby or sapphire or the lesser jewel, garnet, onto thin upright spindles to drill. The jewel bearings would be used in Defense Department ordnance and Bulova watches. This was the first time there had ever been manufacturing jobs near the reservation, and women filled most of these coveted positions. They had scored higher on tests of manual dexterity. The government attributed their focus to Indian blood and training in Indian beadwork. Thomas thought it was their sharp eyes. The women of his tribe could spear you with a glance. Thomas was named for the muskrat, Wajushk, the lowly, hardworking, water-loving rodent. Muskrats were everywhere on the slough-dotted reservation. Their small, supple forms slipped busily through water at dusk, continually perfecting their burrows and eating, how they loved to eat, practically anything growing or moving in a slough. Although the Wajushka were numerous and ordinary, they were also crucial. In the beginning, after the Great Flood, it was a muskrat who had managed to remake the earth. In this way, as it turned out, Thomas was perfectly named.
The Night Watchman is based on actual letters your grandfather wrote.
My mother gave them to me because they were written basically during the year that I was born and I was a baby. All right. So all these letters were written then. It also was the year that the Turtle Mountain Chippewa received notice that they were on the list of the first 5 tribal nations to be slated for termination. And this, as you said, was couched as emancipation. And we know now that those words of take away their special rights are causing them, they're captured. It's like a prison for them. They cannot sell their land. They cannot take the world on in the same way somehow. So this was, in his mind, he had to go through those words and redefine them. So the emancipation, as you said, was termination. And then I put together what he was going through, sleeping maybe 12 hours a week, with what he was fighting. And it floored me. It brought me to tears many times during this book.
What kind of impact do you think this book has on readers?
I have no idea. A lot of my time is really spent working with the bookstore, and I tell you, these past years have been fantastic. I can't believe it. We have a flood of new writers, exciting writers, and people who've been coming up in their writing, and it's been, honestly, in terms of the difficulties and the problems and the sorrows we've been through, this has been something that has lifted us all up. The sheer number, and the intensely interesting quality of these books, wonderful.
That was Pulitzer Prize winning author Louise Erdrich. Her new book, The Sentence, drops next week. After 20 months of virtually no tourism, tribes and individual tour companies are getting back to business. This week, the American Indian Alaska Native Tourism Association held its annual conference on the land of the Fort McDowell Yavapai Nation in Arizona. Members were given some big economic news.
IANTA has actually 15 regions that we work with, and as far as I know, that there are representatives from each of the regions across the country. We even have our brothers and sisters from across the Pacific, the Native Hawaiians, with us here, and I do know that we have a large contingency of Alaska Natives here.
For many tribes, culture is a big part of tourism. Tribes want you to escape the ordinary and visit Indian country. At the trade fair, some handed out hand sanitizer and face coverings, mindful of the ongoing pandemic. Native tour owners are ready to book your next vacation. The eagerness to get back to business was marked by a report released at the conference. It showed Indian tourism is a $14 billion industry. Great news for CEO Sherry Rupert.
That's a huge number for us. Before, we didn't even know really what the economic impact was. And so to be able to have that number is really important for us as we advocate locally, statewide, and nationwide on behalf of tribal tourism.
I think everyone was excited for that $14 billion. You know, that's about the same amount that visitors to Oregon spend. And Hawaii is about $17 billion annually.
Daniel Naha'aopi'i led the study with his company, SMS Research.
Using U.S. Census data. So we're using U.S. government data to show our wealth and our worth.
Indigenous tour operators say they are looking forward to seeing travelers return to help them build more wealth.
I think 2022 is looking like it has a bright future in store.
Well, that will do it for this week. Stay up to date this weekend with all the latest news at IndianCountryToday.com. Thanks for watching. Take care of yourselves. Your life is precious. I'm Patty Dalohungva.
Sometimes you got to take a stand just because you know you can. Oh, you got to run, you got to run. Standing rock. This is Indian Country Today.